Hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and I'm delighted to welcome back two of our regulars, the wonderful Martin Williamson and Dawn Parry. How are you both?
Very well, thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
Good.
I'm good too.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Now, we wanted to remind people how you two met.
Yes. Well, years ago, quite a few years ago now, I think, maybe 8 years ago, Martin, something like that.
Yeah, 2012, roughly. Yeah, around 2012, I think. Yeah.
Okay, 8 or 9 years ago then, Martin was doing, as he always has done, all these wonderful shows, being either Noel Coward or Brunel or whoever, in a shop in Bristol, a vintage clothing shop in Clifton, which was really unusual. And in fact, my mother was one of the organisers of all the wines and things being sold in this fabulous kind of arty evening of live theatre within this shop. And we were all invited to go along and bought our tickets to go, and it was fantastic. And so that's when I first saw Martin, but I didn't actually get to know him. And years later, I don't know, 5, 6 years later, something like that, a few years later anyway, 5 years later, I was invited to go and watch Martin in a venue that I thought, well, I've seen him in some unusual venues. Let's go and see what this one's like. And this was in a at the bottom end of a housing estate, a 1970s housing estate, in the middle of the countryside, in a small village, it was a pretty weird place to have this sort of thing. And Martin was there inside this kind of village hall that had a theatre, and the theatre had these fabulous red velvet curtains. It was, it was fabulous. It was a really amazing thing. And so I spotted him there doing a one-man show. Over to you, Anthony. I mean,
in fact, you know him so well, and you've never forgotten his name ever since.
Never before. No, Martin. Over
Poor
to
old
you,
Anthony.
I know. Well, I think it was the spooky vibes of, there was a little instrument, you see, that suddenly vibrated, and I thought, oh.
So Martin, let me ask you, how did you first meet Vanessa?
Oh, she's far too glamorous to be a Vanessa there. Well, actually, it's funny. I actually knew Dawn's mum before I knew Dawn without realising it was Dawn's mum. I didn't actually know who Dawn's mum was. I just knew her. I used to go to these parties. A lady who I knew who lived in Clifton in Bristol used to organise these parties. And every now and then, this very, very glamorous lady would turn up. She wasn't terribly tall, and she was immaculate. I mean, she was so stylish, and she really sparkled. And I thought, she's one of those ladies you'd meet, you'd never forget.
That was my mother.
Your mum.
Very much my mum.
That's how that, she eventually met my partner, Anthony. And then I was down at Dawn's one evening for a meal, and I saw this card on the side. Dawn bought her mum's funeral card in with the photograph on the front. And I couldn't believe it. I said, well, I know that lady. Was that your mum? And you said, yes. And it was just unbelievable. So it's almost like the way things work that bring people together is extraordinary, really.
And I tell you what, Dawn's mum seems to be the link with all sorts of people, doesn't she?
Definitely.
It's quite remarkable, though, because I knew all these people independently of my mother. My mother and I had very different social circles, but there was a sort of a jazz circle that she was into that I think hooked up with Martin, possibly. Is that right, Martin? Sorry. Yes, I think it is, isn't it, Martin? There was a lady who was a singer, and my mother sang Hello Dolly, because my mother had been a very good singer. And in fact, in Singapore, which is where I grew up, she was she had her own television show and her own all sorts of things, my mum,
So just in case anybody comes out of the woodwork, tell us about your mum. What was your mum's full name? And give us a 30-second resume of her life and career. You can take longer than
Oh my goodness, how could I possibly do that? She was a huge character. I mean, I grew up with some amazing people around us all the time, but my mum, we grew up in Singapore, which is where she had her records and her radio show and her television shows and all this sort of stuff. And are you eating there? What's going on?
Martin,
No, it's not Martin, it's you, Andrew. I spotted you eating. Just
what was your mum
Anyway.
called? Give us her full name.
Well, her actual name was Lady Fox, Carol Fox, and her stage name though was Lisa Pattis. And what's interesting is that when you go and you look up the records that you can buy in the name of Lisa Pattis, they're up there, but for ridiculous amounts of money because they're so rare now. And I've only got 2 of them myself. I know. Well, it doesn't matter. I look in the mirror and I am my mother. You know, the DNA anyway. Yes, I was very fortunate, and she was an incredible character, larger than life. And when it was her funeral, there were hundreds and hundreds of people. There was standing room outside the church, and it was a freezing day. She died at Christmas and was buried on my birthday, and you know, very, very strange, but that's how things go.
No, absolutely. What an extraordinary character. We have a little bit of an echo on the line. I think you might have your speakers on in a certain way, but it's we'll get through it. But remembering your mum is always good, and it is sad. And I always make the point that we always say that wonderful things at the funeral about everybody, and how wonderfully well we remembered them and what they did and how much they meant to us. And I always say to people, as long as you also say it to them whilst they're here.
Oh yes.
And I'm sure you did on a regular basis.
But sorry, while they're here.
You told your mum how much you loved her and adored her.
Oh, good grief. We were so close, incredibly close. And my mother was so proud of me. I've been a politician for many years. And she was so proud of me. And, you know, she'd even, when she was having Sunday lunch or something, if I was on Sunday Politics, everybody had to be quiet while, you know, they all heard what Dawn had to say, you know, on a politics show or whatever. No, she was incredibly proud of me and adored me, and I adored her. And we never stopped telling each other that we loved each other, obviously.
Wonderful. That's great. And that's how you met. And so Martin was that connection as well, which is all
exactly
good stuff. So fantastic. Well, Martin, you've got wonderful characters which we're going to have throughout this year. I thought it would start 2021 in style. But just before we get on to that, how did you celebrate Christmas?
Christmas. It was very quiet. I mean, we only had the one day where we could actually mix with our families. So we drove down to Bristol Christmas Day, spent it with my family and my brother, and it was wonderful. And then the rest of the time, we're just quietly here in the middle of the Cotswolds. It's just beautiful. It's so quiet here. It's wonderful.
Oh, it is absolutely. I love it because I always say it's like a sort of chocolate box.
It is. It really is. But it's like really living homes. People live in them, you know. We went recently. We drove through Bybury, where Arlington Row is. And that's the famous one that's in all our passports as Arlington Row. That's the one that Henry IV wanted to buy, apparently, when he was on holiday in the 1920s. He wanted to buy the whole row and ship it back over to California. But luckily, the locals said no. I think they said, no, you're not buying it. You're not taking it back to America. So there we go.
He said, no, you can buy London Bridge. And he picked the wrong one, I know.
Yeah, what was that? William Randolph Hearst, wasn't it? Yeah, he bought London Bridge thinking he was getting Tower Bridge.
I know, isn't that one? And there is apparently a place where it is brick by brick assembled this extraordinary thing.
I think it's in Arizona, spanning a large river or something. London Bridge.
That's right. It's always a yeah. Well, look, Martin, it's lovely to catch up. We're going to be having you back throughout the series. And a particular favourite of mine is going to be Noel Coward, because we've got Blithe Spirit out. Same Judi Dench at the moment. So in the next episode, we'll be talking to you about that. But for now, Dawn, lovely to catch up. Martin, lovely to catch up. I'm glad you've got his dreams sorted. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
So thank you very much to Dawn and Martin, who eventually got each other's names right. And that connection with Dawn's mum, a small world indeed. And don't forget, whilst people are still here, tell them you love them, because when they're gone, they may not be around to hear it. Either way, if you'd like to be a guest on the Andrew Eborn Show, write to me at guests@andreweborn.com. That's guests@octopustv.com even. You can follow me on Andrew Eborn and Octopus TV, and don't forget to subscribe Octopus TV on YouTube and other channels. But for me, for now, thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.